I thank you for joining us in our daily Bible study. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and I welcome you to our 13th series, Constructing and Deconstructing Habits. Today's lesson will be entitled, You, the Auctor of All Habits. First of all, I want to explain the title. The term Auctor is the Latin term that we get the word author. And it deals with the establisher, or one who sets into motion, one who writes, or one who develops a specific work or ideology. When we go to our scripture, 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Again, we said that when we look at this, not only is it a prescription for getting rid or deconstructing habits, but it's also a modus operandi of developing habits if we look at the reversal of the thesis. So, casting down is something that we must do in order to deconstruct habits. But the flip side of that is if we construct or build up those imaginations and those high things that exalt themselves against the knowledge of God, then we will develop and we will build habits. And so you become the auctor or the author of all habits because you first of all must build up imaginations. And again, when we look at the term imagination, this is a Koine Greek word in the scripture, logismos, and it is connected to the term logos. And logismos then deals with a computation. It is a computing thought or cogitation. And so it is conceptualizing, taking your thoughts and causing them to become ideologies, where they now become visual images in the mind. You become the author by thinking, making choices about things that are important to you, things that you desire to do, things that you lock in on and you seek to achieve. And so as you consistently compute or you consistently structure all of your thoughts into imagery, then these images begin to set into motion the very laws that are operated in the unconscious mind. And in the unconscious mind, and you've heard me speak of the Reticular Activating System, or the RAS, this little part of the brain, it not only keeps you alive, but it has to do with goal setting, has to do with habit formation, because and there are other things that develop the habits, such as the amygdala and many other different arenas that can construct habits because of the rewards center of pleasure. Pleasure, then, desire is enacted, and desire for more pleasure produces what we would call an intoxicant, or what we would also call a habit where one is now addicted to a feeling and to a process. And so building or lifting imaginations, the logismos, is you now choosing out particular thoughts that interest you. You choose out particular thoughts, and these thoughts can be reflective thoughts, thoughts about something that have given you a sense of pleasure. And sometimes the guilt of pleasure doesn't outweigh the desire for pleasure. And so sometimes after we have committed an act, or after we've done something, and it doesn't necessarily sit with our mental or emotional or even moral framing, we feel a little guilt. But the key message is, and the key thing that we have to understand, is that if the outcome, the desire, is much more important or pleasurable than the guilt, then you will continue to concentrate and continue to activate through your mind using the reticular activating system, and it will continue to establish what we call neural networks, neural pathways, and these things will consistently revolve and keep happening in the mind, and they will become habits. And so it is the lifting of the computation. It is the lifting of our thoughts, but not only bringing these thoughts or these imaginations that bring together imagery, but it is also the high thing. Now, when we look at the word high thing, again, it is the word hupsoma. Hupsoma, then, is a towering of self-conceit. It is your presumptions that what you are doing are beneficial to you, what you are doing are correct, and in many cases, again, many people who have religious points of view or specific things that deal with their virtue and their concept of morality, in many cases, we impose a morality upon us that we really have not accepted. And so because of the status quo, we act within the framework of a specific thing, but deep down inside we're struggling because specific actions, specific thoughts bring to us a considerable amount of pleasure, a considerable amount of stimulation that is pleasing to us. And so we consistently wrestle deep within our unconscious, and there becomes a cognitive dissonance where the mind is locked with a desire for something that basically you, as the author of the mind and as the author of the event, you really haven't quite come to terms with it. One part of you enjoys it because of the stimulation or because of the perceived value, but another part of you is wrestling with it because you have set certain perimeters on what your ethical behavior is. And so these two things begin to conflict. And so there is, again, a cognitive dissonance where there is confusion. Your unconscious mind is reflecting through your subconscious to get to your conscious. It's revealing to you that you really choose to do this thing. You really choose to accept something. You really choose to cause this pattern of life to be implemented in your everyday life. But at the upper level, you have accepted and you've tried to adopt a specific morality that you're really not certain with, and you really have not reached a conclusive decision. And so it's desiring to feel what you have said is wrong access or wrong behavior. And so the conflict. And so what happens, you've resolved it in the unconscious, and the unconscious mind, you are still thinking about it. You are still desiring it. And so your unconscious mind sends the signal to the subconscious, which sends the reflective behavior to the mind. And even though you're not aware of sometimes what you're doing subconsciously, you have actually still received, and you're actually still lifting these things. You're actually still exonerating your presumptions. And these things, after you continue to put them together, they exalt themselves. And here when we look at this word, exalt, it is the word epihero. Epihero then means to elevate or to be lifted up to the point of importance where now you feel encouraged to do. Now there is an old myth, and after taking some classes with the Brain Academy, I found out that the standard 21 days to forge a habit is not necessarily true. It may be true for some, but literally it's how you focus on the thing, and it's how you desire it. The more intense you focus, the more intense you lift it up, the more intense you set it before you, the quicker this thing can become a habit. And so habits can be formed in 12 days, 15 days, 21 days, or even more. It depends how you set it forth in your mind, how much you really crave and desire this thing, and how much you activate the Reticular Activating System that consistently brings this desire before you. And so you become the author. You write the script. You write the boundaries. And then your brain enables you and empowers you to establish a new habit. I thank you for joining us. I am your host again, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and this has been our daily Bible study. Join us next time.